Hello and welcome to another modelling video. This is Alan from the Man at YouTube with another 3D printing project as well as a local commission. Today I'm going to be prepping, surface treating as well as painting a figure, G-Man from the Half-Life and Half-Life 2 series of computer video games. A very interesting bureaucrat, government figure, wears a suit, very strange face, very strange colour scheme. Quite a cult popular character after posting work in progress pictures online. Fairly familiar with what's going on through video play, but never actually consumed the franchise myself. The client has passed me the model, which is approximately 100mm in height, printed in PETG, which is a transparent, very strong material from my experience. Works a lot like PLA, but extremely tough to sand, machine, cut, all that sort of thing. A material I'm very unlikely to use again unless it's for its transparent medium. The Cad file was sourced from Thingiverse, drafted by NZ 1984, link down below to download. It was just an outright straight print on a home printer. This project was quite a risk to take on. A very small fee over a short period of time within the confines of a month. Bit of drama picking up and eventually getting. The initial photo I got almost looked polished and resin in nature, though inspecting closer, as you can see from the footage, very deep Z-axis misalignments, some steps as deep as half a mil or quite a few microns. Definitely the requirement of sanding, putting and polishing. The model does have a bit of an over-exaggerated honeycomb-esque shape to the clothing, though the face is quite natural and rigid. Not too sure if this is intentional due to the age of the medium in the game and going for more of a game look rather than a real-life humanoid figure. Both appearances quite appropriate to display regardless. Anyway, quite a good print, a lot of thin parts, the clothing skirts out. Quite happy with it besides the work we have to do. We've stepped down with quite a few range of wet and dry sandpaper from 80 grit all the way to 2000, 5 steps. What we did was we removed any spurs with a knife and just sanded everything down to be as flat as possible. Raised plastic filaments to prepare for layering on some putty. My choice is Squadron due to its ability with the solvents to latch on to plastic, becoming one surface, as well as it does not shrink too much and being quite soft for softer grade of sandpaper. Now I can jump to about 300 grit rather than 80. This is applied with a cotton bud and leaves a bit of a light texture. Once completely dried over 24 hours, this is sanded and buffed away a second time, again revealing a marble effect of plastic and putty. The third step, we're still left with some pits, errors. Maybe a bit of sandpaper has dug some putty out of the 3D printed Z-axis grooves. We go straight onto the very smooth and velvety Mr. Dissolved putty. Again, applies very nicely with a cotton swab, and due to the high velocity just gets into absolutely everything and only shrinks a small amount. Once drying quite quickly, still recommend about 24 hours. Even a high grit of sandpaper, due to how soft and easy it tears up, closer to your 400 grit, you wet sand and buff and polish down to 2000 grit. This should give your surface a very smooth and ideal finish, though if there's any big errors it won't quite fill it right. It's natural some details do get covered by accident, and you're able to recarve this with a panel line scribe or the tip of your knife, such as folds and cloves, separation of the jacket, the tie, the face, the neck, all those bits and pieces. Once we're completely happy, I've applied some lacquer grey primer to look for any mistakes via airbrush. This is also acceptable by hand or rattle can, but looking for the really fine cracks, pits, holes, pinholes, air bubbles. This is circled with a paint marker or Gundam marker to bring to my attention, and again re-followed up with the correct type of putty depending on how deep we've used in the previous steps. Again, a fair amount of time is allowed for drying of both the primer and the putty, and these isolated areas are sanded again. After a couple of weeks of treating all of this and allowing time for drying, we started getting dangerously close to our deadline, which painting has to occur multiple days of drying and layers of masking. Looking at the flesh first, we've gone for a darker colour and built it up to be as light as possible for the pale complexion of the character. This didn't turn out too crash hot at first, but I thought that could be touched up later, masked, and went straight onto the clothing and suits. Each colour and layer being built up of shades of blue, 2 to 3 amounts, and all the other colours, the white, the brown shoes, the briefcase, sprayed at multiple angles to give a nice draping or shadowing of light. A touch of smoke was applied at the very bottom of areas in between the legs, under the arm. Each layer of paint was treated to a top coat of clear goss, automotive grade, allowed a full day to dry, Tamiya tape applied on top, and then the next layer. Smaller details such as the tie and other bits and pieces were hand painted. The suitcase or the briefcase was completely separated. We'll talk about that later. Airbrushed and attached at the very last minute. Once we've had all the clothing come together, very happy how it popped. The face still didn't pop well enough. The eyes looked goofy, didn't draw nicely to the look. There was an initial touch-up with hand painting and a bit of pastel work, and it just looked absolutely fugly. The upper body was masked off a few days before shipping. Did a few tones for the flesh, slightly too tanned. Hand painted the eyes and did the bird's peak effect of the hair with the Sotar airbrush, a touch of hand painting and a little bit of weathering to grey the hair, and it managed to come together to look like the video game character we were all after. The suitcase glued into place. You would have seen a few pictures. There was one that was meant to be 3D printed. To save a bit of time, this was scratch built with a few layers of styrene, puttied, sanded, painted up, and slapped straight on. A process that's far quicker than going through the whole putty process all over again. A few coats of matte clear, no weathering or panel line washes whatsoever. Finished result. Regrets, I've got a couple. Very happy it's been finished. Really happy with the results and the feedback given, that it's such a quirky and interesting modelling idea. I think there should be a lot more video game modelling content focused on the 3D printing community and the scratch building community. People do seem to absolutely love it for commissions, viewing on YouTube, all that sort of thing. If I was to do this all over again, I think I'll crack out my SLA 3D printer, very light sanding, and just treat to all that wonderful deep detail for hand painting, washes, and picking all that up. Unfortunately, utilizing multiple layers of putty, you do drown out some of the nice features and details. It's just not as deep, and there's just nowhere near time to re-sculpt it, recarve it, all that sort of stuff. You'd have to sit on it for a couple of months rather than a few weeks. I don't think I'm going to accept a filament print commission ever again, and completely advise against it unless someone just wants a straight paint job, no detailing, no special effects. Completely focus on the resin side of things. It's definitely worth the bang for the buck that people put in when paying for the hour. Far too much time has been invested, but at least this was documented and the whole experience can be shared. I'm sure the commission is still very happy. The idea was to bundle it in a gift on an effects board alarm clock, and it plays a lot of the one-liners the character delivers during the game, which would be absolutely hilarious and fun counter or shelf toy to have. Thank you very much for watching. As always, until next time, stay tuned for further content. Hope you love the video. If you wish to learn how to 3D print, I have a whole playlist on the channel. If you go to my main channel page, playlists, done a few models. I look at filament as well as SLA, DLP, resin printing. You can see which one is more suitable or superior for your preference, as well as cleaning them up, detailing them, painting them, and designing your own models, be it of a figurative nature or mechanical. Thank you very much for watching. As always, until next time, stay tuned for further content. All references and links down below in the description section, and we will catch you guys next time. Stay tuned for more.